Sure.
Been a national burial crisis for at least 20 years.
Lack of burial spaces.
The introduction of this report from the Law Commission to me
Subject talk.
is well.
UK 24.
The company that I work for, the Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium Management, it's something where our members, because we are primarily a member service, are in contact with regularly as people try and mitigate not being able to provide burial services.
So when you say it's a crisis,
yeah.
what does that look like? You said, I mean, you've alluded to it, that people can't bury people. So what is happening at the moment in this country?
So really at the moment we're in a non-statutory provision where burials are concerned. So no local authority has to provide a burial service, something that isn't commonly known.
Well, Borough Council does at Brookway Cemetery.
The last reckoning in 2007, there was a report done by the Ministry of Justice to see how much...
Well, the Brookway Cemetery.
In the sort of broad brush approach to cemeteries at the time, and it was around 30% within the next 30 years we're going to be running out of space entirely. So the question really is, at the minute, if there is no action, what does that leave you with?
Is it already happening, Matthew, where someone has died and the family are looking for a burial spot, a place, and I mean, are there cases where they can't find a place, or it's just in the wrong place? It just ends up geographically in the wrong place.
Yeah, so I think it's, at the moment, really, you're in a postcode lottery, depending on how much available space is in your area. So it could be that you try and approach your local cemetery service and they just don't have any spaces left. So it could be that there's sort of ways of looking at using the...
Might go further away.
Which the Law Commission report is obviously alluding to now. Yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule up and down the country.
Can I ask you some practical questions? I sort of in advance, I say, if people feel uncomfortable about this, and sort of, but this is your business, isn't it?
Yeah.
People will be curious immediately about 75 years. So you have a grave with a coffin
I thought it was 100 years.
buried beneath.
You could bury someone to there.
75 years on from the burial. I mean, what is beneath the ground there? What are the practicalities of this?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing to really get across here is that this is the whole Commission's sort of focus at the moment is the ability to give people the option to opt in or out of this. The question there about what's left when you go down after 75 years, it's dependent. It's dependent on the soil conditions, it's dependent on the type of coffin that the person was buried in at the time. You can't ever say exactly what you're likely to find. The previous or existing thinking is that after 75 years, the remains are mostly going to be decomposed, which would then lend itself to 3 generations of a family.
Would that include the coffin? The coffin too would be...
You would expect so.
Okay, because obviously if
Fascinating.
The way, as I understand, this new process would work is families would be approached for their permission
Absolutely.
to reuse the plot, and part of that would be there would be a practical thought process about not wanting your loved one to be disturbed in it, or to be treated with respect, I suppose, which might influence the decision.
Absolutely. But I think if you look at anything that's going on within cemetery or crematorium services up and down the country, everything's steeped in consent. So even the places that are currently, they have the powers to enable this, the safeguards in place are sufficient as such to make sure that people have every opportunity to exit that process if they want to.
The problem is, at this moment in time, no one wants to talk about death.
No.
Do they?
No,
They
I feel like I might be the most popular person today.
They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it and plan ahead. But the fact is, if you used the word crisis earlier, it needs to be thought about now.
And like I said before, if we don't act, where does that leave everyone? So if we've still got 500,000 burials a year, or 500,000 funerals, and a quarter of those are likely to be burial services, even if you look at sort of cultural requirements and people that have no other option than to be buried, where does that leave people?
Do you think, based on what you were saying a moment ago, people don't want to talk about it, do you think that politicians stay away from this because they're worried about, I don't know, upsetting someone, or do you think there's just a feeling that we, as they sort of don't talk about it?
I think post-COVID was a leveller for a lot of people. So death, dying and bereavement is right at the...
That filled out a lot of cemeteries up in the COVID times, guys.
But yeah, it'd be naive of me to say that it wouldn't be a political consideration how far you go down the road of promoting this, perhaps.
It's really interesting. Thank you for your expertise this morning. Matthew Corey is
Fascinating.
of the Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium, which is an organisation I didn't know existed. So there you go.
But it needs to,
obviously.
obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
These scribes, Shelton Sign Jevons. These scribes, Shelton Sign Jevons. This is my friend Sparky and Jimbo every Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. ITF thing. Soul Hills radio station. And this is my friend Shane Libers in the Loo every Friday at 10 to 12 p.m. on Soul Hills every Friday. This is my friend John on Last Show every Sunday at 9 to 12 and live on the Woken Show on Last Show every Sunday. These questions on Sign Jevons.